Hello everybody, and welcome to another session of Bigfoot Tales and Folklore. And I'm sure you've probably noticed that over the last few episodes I've been gradually changing from strictly 100% Bigfoot hunting and stories over to the folklore aspects of it, and there's a good reason for that. And that reason is I believe that a great many of the stories that we hear of Bigfoot identifications in the woods are actually more likely misidentifications of other beings in the woods, namely people that are homeless for one reason or another. Either they're on the lam running from the law, or they're people that just don't want to have anything to do with society. One of the problems that we have when we get into the various aspects of folklore in the history of the United States and around the world is that it's hard to tell, going back in time, how much truth there is in some of these stories. And a lot of them are kind of strange, and of course the last couple of days I've gone over the Pomoola stories and legends, and some people claim that Pomoola is a Bigfoot. And you go through my last video, was Pomoola a sabertooth tiger, looks at the legend of Pomoola as being some sort of a cat, a cougar type cat, and possibility based upon that legend. And again, I'm going to see if I can track that down, that this cat was actually a saber-toothed tiger, which may or may not be plausible depending upon how you want to look at things. But today we're going to take another ride up to the Mount Katahdin area, and we're going to read an article from it actually comes out of the New York Times newspaper from 1913, and February 23rd, so it's pretty early in the year, but it's titled "Maine's Mysterious Mountain Cave is Again Visible." And just as a little backgrounder here, this again discusses a couple of the legends of Pomoola and what Pomoola is, and this is in total opposite of Pomoola being a cat-type creature, but instead a bipedal Bigfoot sort of creature. So take it for what you will. It's folklore. It's an old story. It's hard to go back in time and talk to these people and find out if they were just had a little bit too much to drink, or if there is some sort of truth to these tales. But the tales are the tales. So, and I'm a tale teller, so we have to go with them. But this actually happened on Mount Katahdin, and essentially what happened was there was an avalanche that cleared off a good chunk of the foliage on the top of the mountain on the southern side, and there is a cave there. Supposedly, according to this, it's a mysterious mountain cave. And it's one of those weird caves that you can only see when the conditions are just right. The light from the sun has to be on it just right, and the foliage has to be parted just right. There are a lot of things that have to come together before you can see that, and be able to determine that it is a cave there. Now, the problem with this story is that I've hunted and hunted and hunted through all the different cave and spelunking websites out there referring to Maine. I haven't found a single clue or reference to this cave since the early 1900s. So I don't know where this cave is for sure. It's supposedly somewhere near the top, and it's supposedly the home of Pomoola. You can go up to the Baxter Park region and hunt around and see if you can find it. If you do, let me know, because I'd like to find it. And I may possibly go up there when I'm up in Old Town there. I might just keep on going and take a hike around Katahdin, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But anyhow, here's the story. Maine's mysterious mountain cave is again visible. And again, this is from February of 1913 out of the New York Times. Within the past week, the heat of the spring sun at midday caused the masses of snow that cover Mount Katahdin in Maine to loosen their frozen grip that they have held for months, and a snowslide took place on the southern side that covered acres of territory and carried rocks and forest trees before it until it ceased its course halfway down the side of the mountain. As it passed on its way, it tore the trees and tangled bushes from the front of the mysterious cave near the top, revealing the entrance which had not been visible for some 15 or 20 years. This yawning black hole in the side of Maine's highest mountain has for years been the subject of legend and speculation. While it has been visible at intervals, the few parties which have set out to explore it have never been able to find the entrance, although at the time of their departure it was plainly visible from the country about the foot of the mountain. Days have been spent wandering in the woods and to no avail, and as the dark hole has been visible only at widely separated intervals, no exploring party has been able to profit by the experience of its predecessors. The presumption is that the cave is so set in the side of the mountain, and its mountain so overgrown with bushes, that the opening is visible only from certain angles, and that during the climb up the mountain this angle is lost, and the search for the entrance has proved unavailing for this reason. The theory prevails among some of the woodsmen that it is only when a miniature avalanche takes place on the side of the mountain that the forest growth is swept aside sufficiently to show the entrance at all. But others tell the old belief that the Indians, regarding this cave and its tenant, a belief that prevails to this day among some of the trappers and hunters who roam the great Maine forests. The Indian legend was half religious, as were many of their superstitions, and so firmly was the legend of Mount Katahdin fixed in the minds of the Penobscot tribe that few of them would even ascend the mountain part way. According to their belief, an evil spirit named Pomoola resided on the top of the mountain in the summer months, and that he had a habitation within the mountain into which he retired during the winter and at intervals if it so pleased him. The entrance to the mountain was by means of the mysterious opening near the top, which only appeared at intervals. One Penobscot who lived at Old Town, the last foothold of the Indian tribes of Maine, was missing from his home for nearly a year, and on his return told a connected tale of his adventures. According to his story, he was hunting in the forest the previous autumn when a terrific snowstorm came on, covering the land to the depth of several feet and blotting out all the landmarks by which he could find his way back to the Indian village at Old Town. He had no snowshoes and was unable to return, and after waiting a couple of days or so, he became weak from fasting and called on Pomoola for assistance. The evil spirit made his appearance on the top of the snow-clad mountain, and at once descended to where the Penobscot was crouched in the snow, sheltered by a few boughs. Penobscot welcomed him and called him brother, of which Pomoola approved, reminding the Indian that every other Indian who had called upon him had been devoured because of their failure to become Pomoola's partner and to subject themselves to his will. He put the half-famished Penobscot upon his shoulders, and in a few minutes, during which the air all about the mountain was filled with a whistling noise, transporting him to the inside of the mountain. This the Indian described as being furnished exactly like a wigwam, stoked with venison and fish, and inhabited only by Pomoola, but by his wife and children. There the Penobscot was fed and cared for, and eventually the spirit gave him his daughter for a wife. He was told that after 1 year he might return to his tribe at Old Town if he desired, and that any time afterward he might return to visit his wife inside the mountain and remain as long as he pleased. He was warned that if he ever married another wife, he would be transported to the interior of the mountain, and then he would never be allowed to come out. The Penobscot stuck to this story and to his refusal to marry one of the maidens of his own tribe for a long time, but at length capitulated to the charms of a dusky maiden and wedded a belle of his own tribe. The morning after the wedding, the bride awoke to find herself alone in the wigwam, and nothing more was ever seen of the Penobscot. The night of the wedding a great wind had arisen, and it blew furiously for days afterward, which the tribe believed to be evidence of the anger of Pomoola. Among the Penobscot there was another legend to the effect that a young Indian maiden, to whom this story had been told by her parents, refused to believe it, preferring rather to think that the newly wedded pair had had a disagreement on their wedding night, and that the brave had deemed it easiest to desert his new squaw and roam the forests alone. One day she was bathing on the shore of Lake Ambactictus on the side of Mount Katahdin, when Pomoola appeared in person and reproached her for her incredulity. He grasped her, despite her struggles to break free, and throwing her on his shoulders, sped up the side of the mountain. There was a great whistling of wind, and suddenly a hole opened in the rocks, and Pomoola descended with her into the interior. There, she said, she stayed with Pomoola as his wife for a year, when she was told to return to her tribe at Old Town. She was told by the spirit that the child she would bear would be endowed with remarkable powers, that it would be a male, and that it would be able to kill any person or animal simply by pointing at the object with the forefinger of his right hand. But when the boy grew up, she was assured he would be a chief and would save his nation from its enemies. She, too, was warned not to marry again, or she and the boy would be transported to the interior of the mountain and could never return to the tribe. She told the heads of the tribe at Old Town that she had seen the other Indian in the inside of the mountain, and her story was taken as truth, and she was carefully cared for by the old woman of the tribe. When she wanted medicine, she took the child into the woods and pointed his finger at a deer or moose, and it at once fell dead. If a flock of wild duck appeared, stringing across the heavens, she simply pointed the child's finger at them, and one would fall headlong out of the flock. Such an easy method of providing for the needs of the tribe and circumventing the plans of the beef trust of those days was too valuable to be despised, and she and her child were reverenced, until one day when the boy, seeing a friend of his mother's approaching, told her of it and also pointed his finger at the man, who at once fell dead. Then the tribe held a conclave and decided that the boy was too dangerous to have around, and they drew an imaginary line about the girl's wigwam, beyond which no one passed. The mother called on Pomoola for advice, and he appeared and told her to keep the boy apart from the tribe until he was sufficiently grown to realize his uncanny powers, and to use them with discretion, and thereafter she got into no trouble until one adventurous brave came wooing, and finally persuaded her to marry him. On the evening of the wedding day, directly after the woman and her new husband had retired to their wigwam, the wind began to blow, increasingly in velocity all night. In the morning, the husband woke to find that he was alone in the wigwam, and that his bride and her boy had disappeared completely. There were those, even among the Indians, who professed to see connection between the two stories, and who hinted that the Penobscot who first disappeared had spent his year of absence building a habitation in the depth of the forest for his sweetheart, although he had finally been prevailed upon to marry another squaw altogether. That having married in accordance with the pressures brought to bear upon him, he deserted his wife at once and waited out at the home he had constructed until the maiden could join him there, when they lived an ideal life until she was in need of the care of the tribeswoman and was forced to return. That she saw no way to join her lover in the depths of the forest until she escaped from the surveillance of the tribe on her wedding night, when she promptly took advantage of the opportunity. But then there was that mysterious hole that opened on the side of Mount Katahdin. The others would argue there were the big winds, and there was certain evidence of the supernatural and the power possessed by the boy. And when after the boy's departure the tribe steadily decreased in numbers, the old Indians would tell the legend over and over again and lament that the one who was to have preserved their race was imprisoned inside the mountain. And that's the end of that article. And again, that's just another one that suggests that Pomoola might be something different other than what other legends say. And here again, we get into the problems of what is truth and what isn't. Well, that's the article for today in the story, and hope you enjoyed it, and hope you subscribe and come back for more Bigfoot tales. And until next time, happy squatching.